Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, we got a little problem here, and the little problem is China is very much independent and is strong, and like they lately at least do, smack the US's and slash whatever NATO's demands that they pick a side. And by doing that, they act in the same way they always do. They first try to shame you. Right? They make you have this little guilt. Feel guilty about the fact that you are on the wrong side of history because we are the good ones and the other guys are the bad ones, and you should come with us if you want us to give you some money and investment. Basically, that's where everything goes. And if you don't, then we're going to impose sanctions on you and we're going to cripple you economically, and then we're going to make you come on your knees, and beg for us to come and help you. Well, China is not in that position anymore. So let's see what's going on here. This article comes obviously from the bad guys, which is Russia Today, from April 7th, 2023. West in no position to lecture China on Ukraine, ambassador. This is the exact thing that Dr. Jaishankar of India told the Europeans and the Americans. You're not in any position to tell us what to do. We have our own interest, and it's not proven what you say, it is a fact in Ukraine. Beijing will continue to call for peace and dialogue, Zhang Hanhui said. Western countries have no right to give instructions to China regarding its relations with Russia, and I agree with that. And it stands on the Ukraine conflict. Chinese ambassador to Moscow, Zhang Hanhui, has said, it's true, but then the other guys will act according to your statements here. They will not give you, they don't have the right, they will do it anyway, and they will act upon that. They will make you like a child. This is the way these guys act. We don't like the way you behave. That means you don't do what we tell you to do. Therefore, we're going to, how should you put it, apply some discipline on you. Sometimes this kind of physical discipline, sometimes we're going to use, threats, blackmail, a little regime change over there, then maybe physical discipline, which the blackmail and threats eventually goes to sanctions, as I said. And if you don't change your behavior because we tell you what's good and what's not good, then we're going to do this. How would you like to be treated like that? Who would agree to be treated like that but a subordinate country, like a bottom feeder? Yes, like the, Europeans and Australians and New Zealanders and Japan and South Korea. I gotta tell you all this. The United States says, hey, we're gonna defend you. Yes, please come and defend us against whom? Oh, evil China. Yes. All right, well, let's move back to this article. Zhang was asked about the US and its allies. There's no such thing as allies. It's just weasels that follow the United States to fulfill US's interest. Pressuring Beijing amid the fighting in Ukraine, and claims that China is supporting Moscow during an interview with Russian newspaper Izvestia on Friday. And I'm quoting Mr. Zhang. It wasn't the Chinese side that created the Ukrainian crisis. China isn't a party to it and hasn't provided arms to any of the sides of the conflict. The West isn't in a position to give instructions to China, and even more so, it doesn't have the authority to rely the responsibility on it, end quote. So he says basically, we did not create the crisis in Ukraine, so maybe you take a mirror and speak with the Russians. We're not part of it, we're not involved, we don't provide arms like you guys do, and we didn't pick a side on the conflict. And then the West is not positioned to give instructions to China whatsoever. Look at your sins first. Remember the Bible? Hey, you're Christians, all of you over there. And even more so, it doesn't have the authority. Exactly, but the United States has the authority because it's the good country, the country of good, to relay the responsibility on it. So it's not you who's going to tell us what to do, because you don't have any authority. You're not my daddy or my mommy or my teacher or my whomever. And all you had is this. And we got it too. So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to fight? I don't think so. Why? Because you're weasels. I tell you why you're weasels. Look at the US's regime changes or, bringing peace, freedom, democracy to countries. In the past 30-some years, it hasn't done it alone. What does that tell you? It needs some little legitimacy. And it needs some weasels around to say, hey, it was not a unilateral attack. It was, you see, we're here the free world. The free world is that free world as if you can go out to your job or you can go in Germany and say certain things, you get arrested 5 years. So it's so much freedom. Thank you very much with the freedom I have. Yeah, I have more freedom than, let's say, in other countries. I totally agree with that. But only in the past 20 years, if I look at the situation around here, things went like down like this. Look at how much freedom you had, let's say, in 1800s in the United States of America. 1800s, take 1800s. Do you think that you would be fired then if you would say that I don't like Gigi, or I don't like that fat guy, or I don't like that thin guy, or I don't like that this? Do you think it would be fired? Do you think there would be any repercussions? Maybe someone's going to punch you in the face, but you had the right to punch that person in the face too. You don't have the government coming and oh, we're going to ban you from YouTube, we're going to ban you from this, we're going to ban you from this. Hey, you're going to be fired. Hey, we're going to write you up. Or maybe even arrest you. The FBI would show up and say, excuse me, sir, you made these claims yesterday while you were working at gym or... What? So the freedoms, the liberty, the free speech in this country is from here, which was almost, I think, unlimited then in what? Let's just take the year 1800. And until now, it's like this. And the same with the right to bear, carry, and defend yourself. From here, hey, baby doll, take it easy. Like this. So, yeah, freedom. Thank you very much, free world, my ass. According to the ambassador, Beijing, and I'm quoting, doesn't have its own interests in the Ukrainian issue. A little bit it has it because after Ukraine or after Russia, it's you're next. The other ones have interest to kneel Russia, so, and not only. It doesn't add fuel on the fire by not arming any party of the conflict as of now, doesn't seize the moment in order to benefit from this crisis. Well, I have to agree with Mrs. Zhang, right? On the contrary, the Chinese authorities have been consistently calling for a political settlement since the fighting began in Ukraine more than a year ago, he pointed out. I think that's correct. Their statements from China came along those lines. And I'm quoting, "We will continue to stand on the side of peace, dialogue, and historical justice." And quote, Zhang stated, you know what historical justice means here in this context? Or at least I think, the historical territories of a country that need to go back to the country that they were taken or given. And you know what I'm aiming. I can use Romania as an example, leaving Russia out of this. Like Bukovina, like Moldova and all that. On the issue of China-Russia relations, the ambassador noted that President Xi Jinping had described strengthening ties with Moscow, and I'm quoting, a strategic choice, end quote, for Beijing during a visit to Russia last month. Xi said this was, and I'm quoting, based on fundamental interests and the general trend of world development. Fundamental interest, yeah, you have to defend your back and your front from the free world, and the general trend of the world development. Yes, some country, one wants to take over, and in the past 30 years it was in charge, but now is challenged and it doesn't like it a bit. And people talk about hegemony, and they talk about Russia trying to fulfill its imperialistic thirst or whatever, adding that it could not be changed or shaken by momentary events. Yes, I remember Stephen Cohen, a I urge you to go on YouTube, for instance, and find Mr. Stephen Cohen, an American scholar of Russian studies. He died a few years ago, 2 years ago or so, 2 years ago. He was a fantastic, not because he said things that I agreed with, but he was logical, well read, and he was calm. He was a fantastic guy. I admire that guy. Anyway, so watch that guy, and he said At one point he said, we see the difference between the Russians and the Americans political class is that the Russians are thinking in centuries and the Americans are thinking in election cycles. That's a big problem. So when the Russians are planning something, and the Chinese too, they're planning, in 100 years what's going to happen, 200 years from now on. These guys are just, am I going to get elected? Baby doll, hey, sorry, am I going to get elected? Go and make some phone calls. Okay. You see? That's how it works here in this. All right, so remember, Stephen Cohen. Now, I'm quoting again, history shows that Chinese-Russian relations can cope with the challenges of a challenging international environment, end quote, as the neighbors have found, and I'm quoting, the path of proper coexistence, end quote, said the president. They like this word coexistence, if you remember. The Chinese came with it. Zhang, not came with it, but they use it a lot. Zhang also spoke about attempts by some countries to use the Taiwan issues to gain dividends in its relations with China against the backdrop of the Ukrainian crisis. And I'm quoting, the essence of the Taiwanese and Ukrainian problems are quite different. Taiwan is an inalienable part of China, and this issue is purely an internal matter of the Chinese state, which doesn't accept any external interference, end quote, the diplomat explained. And here they give us a little bit of information of that because they are with the Chinese. I scratch your back, you scratch my back as well. So this is it. China is not something that you can push around. And the problem is, this is really idiotic. You got Russia and China. What other country you would not want against you? A bigger country, a stronger country. One is economically and militarily strong. The other one is militarily strong and has resources, natural resources. What the? And you got the people here in China, 1.5 billion people or so. What would be the and they're aligned, they're together. How is this? I know what the politicians here in Washington, D.C. were doing while the Chinese and the Russians were discussing diplomacy and were seeing the future of the world in terms of centuries, while these guys were, you know what I mean? And it's unfortunate. These guys here are destroying what was created. Remember? The Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, fantastic documents, fantastic ideas. Destroyed. And everything is taken over by a mediocre political class. Unbelievable. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just, my friends.